imagine you went to work after your children were a little older.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe in
I
school.
worked part-time in the town hall, but I would not work when they were on vacation. Like when the assessor's office needed help, I would work part-time. Then when it's tax collector, I'd work there. And elections, I worked with the Board of Elections. Then I went on full-time after they were.
So you went full-time after they were out of school, like away from home or college or high school, okay? And where you mentioned after you were married, you moved to East Hartford.
Yeah.
So did you move there right away?
Yes.
Okay.
We built a house, but not right away, but eventually.
You built a house.
Yeah,
so you spent most of your married life in East Hartford, and then after your husband passed away, then did you move back to Manchester?
I stayed in my house for 16 years after he passed. Then I sold it and I moved back to Manchester in a retirement place like this. Yes. That's where I was when I moved down here. I was in a place like this up in Manchester.
And I don't know if I asked you this, but what brought you to Florida and to Hernando County in
Well,
particular?
when they moved down here, they got a house and said they got a room for. No, I don't want to come down. Then I got lonely, so I came down.
Okay, so both your children live in Florida?
Oh no,
that's
my
right.
daughter lives in Massachusetts.
So you probably, I imagine one of the reasons you came down here was the weather.
Oh yeah, that helped. I don't miss
Yeah.
a snowstorm.
So it was your son that lived here, and then they wanted you to live with them, and then you wanted to live.
Find a place for me. I need my space. You need yours.
You're a smart lady. So you have one girl, one boy, and what are their names? Your son?
Gary.
Oh, you already told me, Gary.
Gary and Eileen.
And your
Mary.
wife?
Mary.
That's my daughter.
Gary and Mary.
Yeah.
Okay, and Eileen.
Eileen.
Okay, and you moved to Florida just 4.5 years ago.
Yeah, that's on March of 2019.
Just before the pandemic. You were.
I was here just before that.
You were lucky that. And what are some of the most significant changes that you've seen in the world over the period of your life, would you say?
Well, I think the big thing I remember is when my mother got a refrigerator. We had an ice box.
Oh,
And they used to deliver it by horse and wagon. And they delivered everything. And in the summer when it was hot, and the ice would melt before we had to have we had it then. And in the winter we put a window box in the pantry window to save on the ice. But he used to deliver with horse and an old workhorse, you know.
Yeah.
And they would deliver it a chunk, and he'd walk up the driveway dripping when it was hot. Yeah.
So you said the window box was in the.
All
That
the
was to
kitchens
keep-
had a little pantry.
That was to keep things cold that didn't need to be refrigerated, right? In the winter. Is that
In the
what it-
winter, you could use our milk and everything and eggs and
Right
butter
there
and stuff.
in that
We put
window
it-
box.
My father would put the window box, it was a metal box,
Oh,
and and then you close the window. In the morning you come out to get the milk, which was not pasteurized. You'd open it up and the cream would be up, it'd be frozen, and you'd freeze open in the window.
Okay, so that was quite a memorable event. But overall, okay, so you were born in 1923, and this is 2023, so that's 100 years. There's been a lot of technology changes. There's been a lot of, but is there anything really that is so different from what it was when you were a child that if you were then and then you hadn't lived through all those changes, you happened to come back and see 2023, what would be the most outstanding thing
All
that
these
was...
people playing with their...
Okay.
Oh my God.
Okay. Playing with their
The way
smartphones.
that's progressed, all that stuff,
Yes.
and computers and all that stuff is so different.
Yes.
Our first television was a little 8-inch, and it only ran certain hours, went off 11 o'clock. And then you'd be watching something and it wouldn't go off, and you'd be lucky if it came back on the rest of the night, because the station, we had a roof antenna, you know.
So you'd lose the signal.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Oh. It's a big change with the computers and all that
Yes,
stuff
yes.
today.
What are some events in your life that were the most memorable? You know, what things happened to you personally in your family or whatever that you remember and that you kind of look back with nostalgia?
my big thing is World War II, of course, I remember that, and, when I graduated in June, and World War II came in September, 6 months after I graduated from high school, and 5 of my classmates were killed during the war. Oh, yeah, that was, when that day ended, we had a big time,
So.
And 4th of July in our town of Manchester, that big thing, American Legion would open a booth, and we'd have on town property, they'd have the fireworks, and we had we'd go up at 8 and maybe 10 o'clock in the morning, put a blanket, save the space for night, because they didn't have fireworks till dark.
Oh, of course not, yeah.
And we'd have to hang around to keep the blanket.
Keep somebody from
Kinda like
stealing
the
it or
same
taking your
Oh,
place.
yeah.
So you
Yeah,
have to-
take your place most of the time.
So you mentioned World War II, and that's something that, my dad was in World War II, and
Yeah.
so I was born 49.
Oh, yeah.
But I still, there are things that still were aftermath of the war that I saw. But when you were, being that you were obviously here in the United States, you didn't have it in your hometown, but was there anything that, how did your life change once war was declared? Were there any major changes or things that, that were substantially different? They had gas rationing here, didn't they?
Oh, yeah, we
Yeah.
had gas coupons for
Coupons,
gas and
right,
stuff.
and
To
I-
buy shoes, you had to have a
So
coupon.
there was rationing.